What's up, everyone? How you doing? Welcome to the live stream. I'm your host, Tiger Stacker, and I'm here with my co-host over there, Frostbyte. How you doing, Frosty?
Doing well, buddy. How are you?
Oh, I'm here with you. I couldn't be any happier. So,
How was your day, dude?
what's that?
How was your day?
Oh, I'm trying this new, not very good paying job. It's okay. I'm still working and trying to get a bigger one, but like I said, it's just a little hard to get someone to hire me with the affliction right now. But I do have the advantage of getting to see the missus more often.
That is
So,
a good thing.
oh yeah, dude, she's getting prettier. She's getting older.
That's a good one there.
Oh yeah, both of you and I married up.
That is a fact. Hey, I've got a question for you. Have you
Okay,
been paying attention to what's been going on in the media?
not incredibly much because I've been um, doing the job. So, not incredibly much. What's going? Hold on a second here. Hold on. I got to get something here. Hold on. I guess we're going to talk about something that's.
Yeah, let's bring that back. We got to get into the practice of doing this.
I was trying to do it in a fun term.
It's coming back. It's getting there.
Well, I was also trying to do that because I just got a message in chat that the link I sent you that worked, he said he didn't get. So I'm going to send it while
Well,
we're talking.
let's get that done. There's a couple things in the media, and I've done something that's kind of a little silly. If you can pull that up here, folks, we're going to be hearing about this. And just, it's a thing, but is what it is. Remember, these things are just in the news. So, Tiger, will you share the screen?
Working on. Oh, I got to unshare mine. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
All right, coming soon. Just outside of the airport by Mar-a-Lago, that airport is now going to be called the President Trump International Airport, and it's going to be taking place just a couple days before this semi-quincentennial on July 4th. So this is going to be officially renamed. Remember how we talked about this the other day? It's most likely that this is a banner. This is a key year. It is the semi-quincentennial, the 250th anniversary of our nation. This is a banner year for him. He is the head of the country in our 250th anniversary. We're going to see a lot of this kind of stuff this year. It's just come to be expected. You know, this is the president. This is POTUS. This is the man. So we're going to see more of this as the semi-quincentennial comes about. So just be aware of this. You guys are going to be seeing a lot of this kind of stuff and a lot of controversy surrounding it. So again, remember, peaceable action. Think about what you're doing. Think about what you're saying. Right. Remember that people have differences of opinion, and you know what? We can agree to disagree. But in the end, it's good to hear other people because a knife never got sharper by cutting butter. Iron sharpens iron. So surround yourself with people who have different mindsets and opinions. And this stuff will happen. So it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
Well, he's always been an alpha male. He's going to leave this earth as an alpha male, and probably one of the biggest alpha males we've had in quite a while. So I'm not surprised. You know, it just is what it is.
It is, but again, there's a lot of people are frustrated over the coin issue and then the signature on the $100 bill and potentially other ones, along with Secretary Besnett. We talked about that this weekend. And again, it's people say no, it's illegal. It's not illegal. The question that I asked is it president or precedent, and in every one of those cases, it's precedent. And so it's not because of who he is that he's able to do this. It's been done by other people for other reasons in the past. There's no litigation or law that says he cannot do this. Now, he can't put his face on the bill by law, by decree. He can't put that on there. That is illegal. He can't be on a presidential coin, that $1 coin series, because in the 2005 law says he can't do it. But there is nothing, absolutely nothing anywhere that says that the president of the United States cannot be listed on any of the circulating currency. What it does say, and if you read the language very carefully, you do get to see the fact that the person responsible for this is Secretary Scott Bessent. So again, the secretary is the one who controls things like where in God we trust is. Now it has to be on there, in an area that can be seen. It cannot disrupt the pattern. Can't disrupt the design, but he gets some pretty unilateral leads as long as he's following the confines of what that item, bill, coin, or metal is supposed to be. And so this is one of those things that it's going to happen. And I believe in June, this is when this is going to come out. So that is a thing as well. So be prepared for that. One thing that Paula said that was really important was that the dollar is, unless you collect bills, how many people ever, Tiger, have you ever paid attention to whose signatures are on a bill?
No, and Paula made a very good point because I listened in on that.
Yeah.
I didn't care. I was exactly what Paula said. I didn't care what was on it as long as it bought me what I needed to buy.
Yep. And there are people who collect. And so there are going to be some people who will want to have this, right? This is potentially a big collectible. Again, it's President of the United States, semiquincentennial year. And if he does stuff like we talked about with one of the other ladies who had signed these notes, so if it had her signature on it, she would do a courtesy signature on the bill. And she would be her actual signature over the top or above the seal and where her name was signed. And really neat things. I 100% see him doing that for collectible purposes. Yeah. And so that's, you want to go listen to that, go check that out. But again, those discussions are just discussions. They're not political. They are just looking at the legislation, looking at the laws, and talking through it. So remember, folks, we can have political discussions without getting political. So have the discussion, agree to disagree, and I think we should go find our guest.
Well, I just talked to him. I thought he'd be here by now. If you keep everyone entertained, never mind. I just got the bleep. And here he is, the one, the only.
Hold on, before you bring him up. Oh, yeah, I was about to say, before you bring him up, everybody turn off your monitors. We don't want these things to crack.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
What's up, Surfer?
Hey, guys. Yeah, I couldn't get it to go on my phone, so I can't show you all my silver and gold I laid out. It wouldn't let me in. It said some kind of security permission that Tiger needs me to give up my firstborn, something like that.
Oh, yeah. He wants the locker at the bottom of the lake that everybody's had those tragic accidents on.
Actually, what I really want is for someone who's got a hole in their boat to let me rent the boat. No,
just take a kayak. It'll tip.
One time I'm going to have to tell you about my Mexico story. You want to talk about tipping a kayak and being rescued by strangers a mile from the shore? It's a fun story.
Ooh.
I love my wife. Well, as far as the security thing goes, maybe you, Frosty, and me can get it fixed so that you're comfortable with whatever it's doing or not doing.
No, it just it just won't let me.
I'll walk through that, Surfer, and make sure it gets fixed. I know exactly what's going on with that.
Yeah, it's just stuck in a loop.
Okay. So one of the things we were planning on talking about with what's going on in the investing, we're seeing the volatility. Looks like the price might go up. It might come down. Looks like mostly it might come down. Uh, Frosty and I talked a lot about the 100-day moving average, the 200-day moving average, breaking the floor, making a new floor, maybe breaking the next floor. So is it the best time to buy, sell, hold? Precious metals in the physical context, in the mining stocks. So those were the things that we talked about. And being you're a really good macro analyst, and Frosty's not so bad himself. Let's have it. Let's have at it.
So today's topic is going to be.
I thought I just mentioned it.
Remember what I told you we were going to do?
There's
Ding,
a lot of
ding.
things to talk about. Which one are you talking about?
Hit the button.
Hit the button.
The button. Today's news.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh man, we got some kinks to iron out. Yeah, today's topic. Surfer, what's going on, brother?
Oh, dude, there's a lot going on. Lots of stuff going on.
I heard a term today, and I want you to tell me a little bit about it. And this is something that, if we're going to talk mining stocks, it's kind of one of those things that people have to kind of understand why they've been a good play and why people are still looking at them today. What is a byproduct credit? Does that term ring a bell to you?
I mean, I could make a guess. I don't know what it actually means when it comes to mining stocks, but there's you can tell us exactly, but if it's due to mining production and it's a byproduct, then that would make sense that there's something that comes out of that. Otherwise, carbon credits are a whole thing that became a made up big deal.
So, okay. So and that's exactly right. Both of those are correct, right? So some of them come in the form of credits that were created. However, miners that mine precious metals, those metals that come out have an intrinsic value.
Yep.
And that offsets their cost. So remember, when they mine this, yes, they get to sell that, but they also get to sell that at a premium. I love that blood bar, dude. They also get to sell that at a premium because what they get to do is, for instance, silver. When they mine that, they get that primary, secondary metal, depending upon if it's a copper mine and they're pulling out silver, or if it's a silver mine and they're pulling out gold, whatever its second or third metal might be. All of those metals get cut from the operating costs of that primary metal, right? So again, it could be gold, it could be platinum, palladium, the PNG metals. There's a whole breakdown of metals that can be used. And again, they are worth money. And so the reason that I wanted to kind of ask that and set that definition is because that shouldn't be confused with what you were just talking about, which is the credits. Can you explain a little bit about those credits?
The carbon credits?
Yes.
So I won't get too political on it. I've got my opinions about the whole thing. But basically, you've got places that create or offset carbon. So they don't create carbon. They create energy a lot of times, but they offset the carbon, like solar panels, wind turbines. They've even got facilities that'll suck carbon out of the sky. Those things will produce positive credits that can then be sold to a company that produces cars and has a lot of pollution that comes out of them. And so they've basically created an entire market around it. When I fly for work on airlines, some of them now are giving you the option to spend extra money in addition to your ticket so that you can offset your carbon footprint and you can buy some carbon credits. But it's a huge industry. It's multi-billion-dollar industry now that companies do that are trying to be compliant with those rules and regulations. It used to be called ESG. was a big push, and then that took a lot of bad mojo, and so they've kind of downplayed that name as of late. But they're still working on carbon credit stuff. I mean, it's just a matter of time before you guys have an app that tracks your footprint.
Oh, I'm sure they're probably out there. We just haven't seen them yet.
They haven't launched them yet, but they've been around for a couple of years waiting.
Yeah,
I've been
I'm
on
sure.
phone calls, so I know they exist now.
I thought they got rid of all that concept when Trump got elected into office.
Well, yeah, no.
And that's where he said he didn't want to get into the political.
Yeah,
Well,
no, but
I fully understand that, but just
whenever you think something goes away and it's to your advantage, just know it's kind of it's gone into hiding. It's not really gone.
Okay.
It's like all the 2030 you'll own nothing to be happy kind of stuff. That hasn't gone away. It's still kind of there, but we're not hearing a whole lot about it. And
there's a lot of that kind of stuff that happens.
Yeah, it could be pushed out another decade. It could be called something else. We have new legislation that says you cannot have a CBDC in the United States, yet a lot of what they're putting in legislation around stable coins looks like the same thing. It's just not issued by the Fed. It's issued by a third-party company. It's still programmable money that could be put in the same usage. So, I think they test things and they see how the public takes to it. And I don't know why they're surprised by the results sometimes, but they do a lot of rebranding of things. But it's, the carbon credits are the important thing to understand there is that companies they're still playing that game. They still need to be able to offset that. And mining ore is not something that is a clean energy thing.
No, it's not.
Hey, Tiger, flip that piece back over again. I don't know if it's just me and my carnal fear of clowns, but doesn't that look like a clown in the background? Anyway,
No.
the weird things you see when you look at something. Anyway, that political statement was not endorsed by either party.
Okay.
Sorry, Surfer said he didn't want to get political, so I was trying.
Well, no, I can get political. I don't think you want me to get political. That's a different thing.
Yeah, it's just like, let's steer away from this. We're getting a little bit too close to that. All right, so let's do this.
Bring up a good point though about the whole thing of mining stocks, right? Like, if they can offset with these other metals, there's extra profitability there. What price does silver have to be at for it to be profitable to not just leave it on the side as rock, raw ore, and get it processed and sold to market? We don't need $120 silver for silver mines to be profitable.
Understood.
What is that number? That number is different now with these copper mines that find extra silver than it is if we have a dedicated silver mine that opens brand new and builds a new facility. And let's say the Trump administration helps them get it all set up in 1 year instead of taking 10 years to go through it. They still have to put roads in. They still have to do the infrastructure. So you're still talking several years to get it up and running. But that's where the floor is going to be built, according to Andy Schechtman, is the floor is going to come in at a place that makes it profitable for ramping up in putting in new silver mines in the United States. Now, does he know that for sure? No, but it's a very good guess.
It's a good logical assessment.
Yep.
Well, and again, there's a difference between a guess and an educated assessment, right? And there's also educated guesses. That's more of an educated assessment than it is an educated guess.
Well, you need things in place to have a mine. You need roads. You need a supply of water, if not for what you're doing, at least for the hydration of the workers.
It is absolutely no different than if you were to buy a cabin out in the woods or buy a property that you were trying to build a house on. You still have to get all the services there.
Yep.
Exactly.
Right.
In
And
some
so
places will
it's-
have it, and other places just won't have anything at all.
and if you have to build the infrastructure, it's a decade.
Yep.
And that's why you were saying it's going to take 10 years. And so a lot of these things that are somewhat rural and they can't find, I can't believe I said that word right the first time, rural, um, it becomes difficult because what happens, and correct me if I'm wrong in this, but what I've seen in the past is that you get 3 years of action and then somebody comes in before it's actually off the ground and ends the program. So there's years of effort for something that never actually goes anywhere. And we've seen these things happen before. The question is it something that is it conducive to the strength of our economy? Is it something that we need to do that we could get bipartisan agreement on? Or is this something that is just because he said it, nobody's going to want to do it afterwards?
Okay, first off, I don't think anything gets passed by our government anymore unless there's a promise on the other side. Everything seems very much negotiated. So I would have a hard time. Yeah, I'd have a hard time seeing both sides just go with something. It would have to be. There would have to be a need for it publicly, like the public's calling for it. Otherwise, one side's going to try to negotiate it more than the other. But let's just say they're all favorable of doing it. It's going to take time to ramp this stuff up. Like, it's going to take most likely half a decade. But you got to look at a few things that are going on right now. You've got China closed off silver exports, and they refine 80% of the silver in the world. Okay. Now, I think there's like 50 companies that could potentially export it, but there's limits on how much they can export, and it all has to get approved by the CCP. Based on everything else that's happened after that announcement, I highly doubt very much of it's leaving. China wants to keep it to either for the wealth or to keep their manufacturing going and have an edge. So just that alone, all of a sudden the rest of the world that's not friendly to China has to figure out how to refine their own silver. They can't send it to China anymore. So more likely than just mining, it's refineries that we've got to set up. And so I think there's one they're bringing online in the Midwest, if I remember correctly. And then you go down to Mexico, and they produce about 70-80% of what comes out of the ground every year.
Right.
So, we got a couple problems here. The place that does all the refining has stopped letting it leave, and our neighbor to the south produces most of what comes out of the ground. So, we can continue to escalate things and not cooperate with each other and have a very bipolar world, or they're going to figure out how to end up negotiating and working it out. But either way, I don't see the deficit unless we go into a greater depression than what we had in the 1930s. I don't see that we're going to have a slowdown in the demand for silver. And based on everything else that's going on, we're probably not going to be able to up the production of it, at least for 5 to 10 years. But
I actually brought that question up in one of my recent interviews, and the person I interviewed didn't think actually, they thought we were too late to get refiners going. I'm assuming that it's going to take just as long to set up a refiner as it is to set up a new mine.
Probably. I mean, you can't be too late. So I don't know what they mean by that, but let me back up for a second. In my opinion, the reason all this silver is needed, and the reason we've got countries closing this stuff off, I believe we're in a race to create not just general intelligent AI. There's a step above that. I forget the name for it, but it's basically AI that's as smart as every human that's ever lived on the planet. And we're just a couple years away from that. I think it's a race between the West and the East to develop that. And I think what you're going to see is there's a fight over chips, there's a fight over energy. With those are the two inputs you need in order to create the AI. And we're at the point now where you don't just create AI, it's like creating itself. It's getting smarter on its own. It's rebuilding itself. So I think that's where you've got a lot of these issues and what's going on today. You've got Venezuela, you've got Greenland, you've got a handful of countries down in South America that produce a lot of metals too. And then you've got Russia. Russia closed off all gold exports last week. And
Yeah,
then
I was just about to say that. Yep.
They also closed off whatever they contribute to fertilizer. I don't know if it was ammonia or whatever. And then the Strait of Hormuz, you've got 20% of the oil of the world is closed off and 30% of the urea for fertilizer too. So if we're not very careful here, we're probably just weeks away to maybe a month away from, diving the entire world into a massive recession where we're going to have a famine because there's not enough fertilizer to grow enough crops. And we run into the risk of skyrocketing the price of food from that in places that have the ability to buy it. Other places just won't have it. And then you have the other risk of oil, even though it's only 20%, that's still a significant amount that could cause inflation on overall price for all goods. And it could take a while for that price to come back down, even when you open it back up. So those are kind of the dynamics that are out there. And so I would say, Frostbyte, we're 50-50 right now on whether we're about to see the next leg up on silver and gold, or if we're about to go well below the cup and handles that both of these formed and go to levels that are going to freak anybody out that has bought above 30.
Yeah, and I want to pull up the chart, and I want to kind of go through and talk about why you said that. But there's one other thing that you didn't talk about, and I'm actually really surprised you didn't say this.
Okay.
There's been and it's been a little while ago. I think it was about a week ago. We got notice that the ETF is shifting in India from the LBMA to the domestic spot price of India. And so what they're doing is they're actually taking their ETF and shifting the valuation from that global pricing to that local premium. And so this is a big issue because their net assets are going to look at the local market conditions instead of global. So if they're trying to build their local economy, we're going to see differences and variances in spot prices. Well, I mean, we do now, but it's going to become even more extreme.
Because the interesting thing on that too, though, is it's becoming regionalized, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're going to price things based on what their objective is for that region.
And what the availability to get it is.
Exactly. So the U.S. is going to look at this. We believe that if we price it at a certain level, that it will stop going to China. China will stop buying all our silver up. And when I say us, it's the West. China believes that if they stop silver leaving their country, that that's going to allow them to have what they need. And if India believes that they're going to price it to what the country needs, they believe that that's going to help them with their things. It could be really interesting if we end up with 3 different prices of what silver is out there.
That makes a lot of sense.
And, can you trade among those 3 different groups? I don't know.
Well, I don't know, Tiger. What did I tell you about the number 3, though?
Oh, here we go.
3 is my favorite number. These things always happen in 3s. It's just a thing.
Basically, it seems like we're going backwards on this subject. It used to be that everybody's years and years and years ago, everybody's economy is based upon what was in their economy, and then the nations would have to argue back and forth what things were worth. And then when we got to globalization and NAFTA and all that, things became more unified. But in that process, certain organizations became more powerful than others, and we became a whole lot weaker. Now we're trying to put our infrastructure back into place, and we're going to be meeting with resistance. And you've already mentioned what China's doing, what Russia's doing. We're going to be going back to, one set of values will be in one country, another set of values will be in another, and they're going to have to argue amongst themselves what the price in the exchanges will be. I don't think it'll be many, many years before we see anything close to globalization again. So it's going to affect
it's
going to affect oil. It's going to affect everything.
What's basically looking like right now. Okay, first off, free trade is the coolest thing in the world if it's pulled off right. So is capitalism. They're both really cool things because it gives almost everybody an equal footing to do it. The problem is none of us have actually lived in real capitalism.
True.
There's always been, monopolies, oligopolies. There's always been people doing things like lobbying to get favoritism for their thing or whatever else, or their laws in place. One of the things that caused a lot of that was going off the gold standard. If you look at the charts from 1971 on, that's how the 1% got built. There didn't used to be a 1%. It was like a top 20%. That 1% held most of the assets. They went skyrocketing while the rest of the world had to spend their assets in order to live and survive. And I saw a stat yesterday or a couple of days ago on X. It was basically saying that you would have to make $300,000 this year to equal what I think it was like a minimum wage person would make. And I saw the calculations. It's not exactly correct what they were stating. They were looking at it based in gold. But what the point they were trying to make is you could afford an ounce in let's say, I think it was 2.5 or 2.3 ounces of gold a week on a salary of a minimum wage back in the early 70s, whereas today you can't do that.
No, you can't.
So, the reality that I like to tell people too is when you look at gold, the fact that any of us can afford gold, yes, 5,000 is pretty expensive right now. But the fact that anybody can even get their hands on gold is historically unprecedented. That's not something that most people would be able to get their hands on.
And historically, it was designed for the wealthy to pay the armies. So silver, silver primarily.
Yeah.
The copper and the silver coinage. But some of the elite, right? It was big government money. It was kings. It was
kings,
the proletariat. It was
right? That's how the gold. Everybody else had the silver. The peasants basically
the
they were using like copper. They were using tin. They were using just barter. But
that's what the precious metals were used for, is the large national purchases.
Exactly. So, this is the other thing I'll just throw out there along with this too is, because we're at this 50-50 point right now, it's hard to make a decision on to understand which way it's going to go, because it can really tip either way. I can see a scenario where this war ends in 2 weeks potentially. And even if it ends, we may be negotiating that everything that goes through the Strait of Hormuz has to pay a tax to Iran. That's something I saw as a possibility. So even though the war could end, we could still have higher inflation because there's now a new tax going in on fertilizer and oil. We could also see another scenario where this war goes on for several more months and we see oil get up to $150 a barrel to $200 a barrel or more. And that's going to basically plummet us into, I believe, a recession, and then potentially a depression if it's also combined with a lot of job loss from AI, taking out jobs. So if you get kind of a perfect storm of those two things going on, it's not all doom and gloom, but for a period of time it would be. That really could, crash metal prices well below, at least spot price well below what it costs to mine metals, and they may just shut the mines down, which would be even worse because it takes time to spin those back up.
So, Surfer, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that what BlackRock CEO, what's his name, Fink?
Yeah.
Isn't that what he said? Because he was basically saying if it gets that high, we're going to have a global recession.
Well, I think he said, well, if it stays above 100, we're going to have inflation, price inflation. If it goes that high, we're going to have a global recession. Yeah, he probably has. I haven't seen his quotes on there, but if we get to like $200 a barrel of oil, you're not going to have fuel. So you're going to maybe get to fill up your car once a month, maybe twice a month. And if you've got multiple cars per house, you might only be able to fill up one car. So that would take us back to the Carter days.
70s, yep, early
Yeah.
70s.
Yeah, and I didn't hear
I'm
anything
old enough to remember that.
period of time, but it's that's the kind of thing that can happen. And then in other countries like in Australia, they're already playing around with this idea of an energy lockdown. So they're kind of throttling your energy, right? So you can read into that in a lot of different ways. And to me, it looks like so much of this stuff looks like it's planned to a degree. But when you look at that, that's the kind of thing that will basically completely cripple an economy. I mean, people aren't going into their work anymore, right? So then you start getting the same issues we had with no one going into the cities. If you're not driving around, then you're not getting fast food and going to restaurants and going to other places. So you end up really you bolster a couple companies and make them super rich, like Amazon and Netflix and stuff like that. But I don't think it's gonna. If we go down that road, I don't think it's gonna last forever, because I don't think Trump wants to be known as the president of the Greater Depression.
Oh, that's true.
I think they will just go and turn on the money printers even more than they are now, and they'll basically start doing QE and all kinds of money printing, to where if you have metals, you're going to see the metals appreciate significantly more than the inflation rate. But it's the short term that I'm mostly concerned about. So long term, I'm not concerned. Like, I still think between now and 2030, we're going to see much higher gold and silver prices than even the recent all-time highs that we just saw. And the reason for that is that I'm looking at charts. I'm looking at supply and demand. I'm looking at what central banks are doing. Central banks don't go and start buying a ton of gold unless they think the US dollar is about to go way down in value, or they're planning to reset currencies. Those are only two reasons you'd own a bunch of gold. Gold doesn't yield anything. So they're not making money off that today. And so in my opinion, that's what they're getting ready for something there. They think the dollar is going to go down, or they think they're going to reset currencies. Either way, it's bullish for gold. The only scenario I see where it's not bullish for gold is if the central banks decide to start dumping their gold. Otherwise, it's just a matter of time when we get there. And so, if you bought gold and silver anywhere above $50 for gold, and anywhere above $2,500 for gold and $50 for silver, is it possible for us to go below those prices? And the answer is yeah, it is. And it could stay there for a while, but I don't see it staying there for more than a year.
So, Tiger, if you do me a favor, if you will reach down and pull up the share screen. What I've got is this is gold. I'm only looking at a small subset of the buy-sell data down here, so you don't see it all the way across, because I'm only looking at what's going on recently. What I was talking to Tiger about is we watch and it's coming up and it's hitting. This is the 100-day moving average. This is the 200-day moving average. And it's entering this channel. We already tested the floor. It's the same exact chart on silver, except the difference here is if you take this and you look at it, this is about to pop. If it goes through, it'll go up. If it doesn't, it'll bounce down. And then we could see it bounce around in this channel for a little while.
Yep.
And they've talked about it sitting in that channel for a while. I believe that's probably what's going to happen. But it only takes an event either way to push it, whether it goes down or whether it goes up. And there's a couple key dates. And when we're talking about gold, you look at the intersection point. That intersection point can come anywhere between tomorrow and April 1st. If it goes up and it punches back up through there, then we have to watch to see if this ceiling pushes it back down. And then if it pops through and it starts to rise again, then we have to look at, what's the overall position? Where's it going? What's the next channel this way? So you end up with a cross pattern. It's kind of like if you're trying to do triangulation right? You find that little box and you go, where in this box does it look like it's going to go? And so when you're looking at this, it's cool to do this. But remember, even utilizing this without knowing the financials and without understanding the volumes, it's all speculation. And so you can know all you want to about this stuff, and you can dig in and you can do the charts, and we can go in and we can do trend channels, and I'll come over here from the top to the bottom, right? So we want to check that out. We want to come from here and kind of see where it's at, and then we can move this channel around and kind of see the direction it's going in. And if I really wanted to do this, I should have started here because that's the low. But, I mean, you can see kind of where it's going and where's the high point, where's the low point, what direction is it hitting. And if we look at this right here, we look at the high to the high here, they intersect. Something should happen here. This will kind of tell us where we're going. But this is just one piece of the puzzle. So when we talk about technicals, it's just like when you test silver and gold, right? You can't just use one test. You have to do multiples. So don't look at this stuff and think this is your ticket to making good decisions.
Well, the other thing I want to point out there too, Frosty, real quick, is if you zoom in on that, it almost looks like a reverse head and shoulders.
Okay. Do you here? Don't.
Yep. So some people are calling, hey, this is bullish move, right? It's going to start going up. Well, here's the issue. No one can predict what Donald Trump's going to say next.
Ain't that the truth?
So the fact that you don't know what he's going to say next or do next, the charts are only as good as, the data you got, right? So it kind of looks like a reverse head and shoulders, which means it will go back up. But here's the thing. We could have a tweet that comes out tomorrow or a message on Truth Social that Trump, he may make peace tomorrow, right? And the peace could last a week and you see it go skyrocketing back up. Frankly, it should be, normally it has better odds of going up than down when you're in a war situation. Right now, there's just too much uncertainty that's going on. But like you said, just because you can see a pattern in there, we live in a time where someone can do a social media post and completely reverse and blow that whole thing up. I mean, technically speaking,
Fact.
We should have never gone as high and as fast as we did with gold and silver. That was way too fast to break out of that. Starting December, it just went nuts. And so we had a good 2 months of this massive run up. The problem is you don't know if it's going to run up to 150 or if it's going to run up to $80. So you got to make your decisions based on that. Now, if you're a true stacker, then it doesn't make as much of a difference if your whole goal is to accumulate.
Fact.
And
yep, that's true.
if it's all about ounces and accumulation, it doesn't matter too much. However, what I do want to say is if you still have debt or you don't have a large amount of cash on the sidelines that you can get access to, and gold and silver is your savings, it is your backup plan, right? Maybe it's even part of your retirement. If gold goes down to below 2,000 and silver goes below 30, you've got to kind of reassess, okay, what does that mean? What do I do? How's that going to affect things? And so I think this is a time where, at least for me, I'm looking at my mining stocks going, that's the most liquid stuff I have in my gold and silver portfolio. Do I keep them or do I sell them? I can still make some money off of them. I can still make about a 15, 20% return off of them. Or I can, and sell them today. And if it goes lower, then I'll feel really good because I can buy them lower. On the flip side, if it takes off in 2 weeks and it goes way back up, I missed out on that. However, usually when things go up, you can see the trend going up. So you may lose like a 10%, 20% gain. But if it goes down from here and it goes down 50% from where it's at, then you lose 50% and you got to hold or you take a loss.
Well,
so I think it really has more to do with liquidity right now is the biggest concern I have, more so than, trying to decide how much you do, right? So when you talk about dollar cost averaging, that's a good thing to accumulate ounces. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to save a ton of money. It doesn't mean you're going to buy at the lowest, and it doesn't mean you're going to reduce your cost per ounce. But it does mean you're going to be spreading out your risk in overbuying. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to lower the cost overall. So, you got to look at those things and kind of understand how that works and make some decisions on it. But right now, I think it's a good time to be thinking about liquidity more than it is about accumulating ounces in my book.
Let me ask you something about this, because there's a component we talked about. We talked about accumulating, whether it's going to be cash or metals. We talked about, what we think is going to happen in the charts. What happens when different loan officers, banks, start calling in the loans?
Well, if we get to that phase where they call in the loans, things are super bad. They can call your home loan. So anybody that has a house loan or a car loan, you can lose that if you don't have the cash to pay it. And a lot of times they'll give you 5 days to 10 days to do it. And if they do that at any kind of mass scale, well, then, you're going to have to liquidate whatever you have to pay that. And that might be liquidating your gold and silver at a much lower price than it is now. I mean, that's like worst case scenario. So, the best case scenario you can be in is no debt. You've got cash flow coming in every month that's more than what you need to live on. And you've got extra money where you can be, buying gold and silver. And right now I would say if, 50-50, whatever you would normally take to buy, save half of it for a rainy day. Maybe the other half you buy these dips that are here. If you're in a bunch of debt right now, I'd probably be looking at building up a cash reserve to help pay that debt down or to cover it, versus going into buying a bunch of metals right now.
Makes an interesting approach to it, because I know a lot of people are still heavy into their mortgages or their car loans. So the other thing I want to roll into also was your approach on the stocks, the mining stocks, the royalties, the ETFs. I know you do a good bit in this paper market that a lot of stackers don't get into. You tend to get it more than a lot of other stackers. So wanted to see if you could enlighten our viewers today about what your viewpoint is on that.
I do some. I don't do a ton, but I don't play the gold and silver ETFs. I don't play SLV or GLD. One, because they've been majorly rehypothecated, which basically just means for every ounce of gold and silver they have in their depositories, they've sold it multiple times. There's all kinds of numbers. I saw someone try to correct everybody the other day that said there's only about 8 ounces to every 1 ounce of silver. Yet, if you look at the US debt clock, it shows up like 265 ounces or something. It doesn't matter. As long as there's more than 1 ounce that's resold, you can potentially run into some problems there. I don't think.
And real quick before you go on, just so you people, when he said the SLV, who runs the SLV?
JP
Morgan.
Yep.
Yeah, JP Morgan. And so the SLV is the largest one. So that's why that one in particular was mentioned. For those of you who might not be tracking, I just wanted to make sure people captured what that meant.
Yeah, so plumber stacker, we'll get to it in a second. But yeah, banks can call in your 30-year loan. Go read your loan documents. There's probably certain stipulations on when they can do that. It might be with an interest rate having a certain amount going up, or it might be if the bank has a solvency issue. It might be if you've missed a payment for 2 months in a row, they might be able to call your loan. But you guys want to look at that. Just because you have a 30-year loan doesn't mean that you're totally cool, doing whatever you want to do with it. I've heard, I haven't read this, but I've heard that newer loans actually have the ability for them to increase the interest rate if it gets beyond a certain point. You know, I know people that have taken out massive mortgages on multiple houses because they believe there's going to be a debt jubilee coming and that they're going to be forgiven of all their debt because the banks are going to lose all their records. I'm pretty sure the banks keep paper records of loans.
Oh, they're not. They haven't been in the business for decades and centuries by being foolish.
No, I doubt they keep the records of what your balance is in your checking account on paper, but I'm pretty sure they do it on their assets, which would be your loan. So, I'm not scaring you guys about that. I'm just telling you that, things can happen. So, just know what you're doing there. And, if you're buying a bunch of precious metals and you still have a lot of debt, I'm okay with you guys having things like constitutional junk silver for a rainy day. But if you're going much heavier than that, you need to make sure your metals can offset that debt. Otherwise, you're starting to basically finance your metal purchases.
One of the things that I can tell you in my situation, my wife hated the EV we had. She originally wanted it, and then later she hated it, and she wanted it gone for a lot of the same reasons you've mentioned in your channel. Fires that don't go out, how much the infrastructure is not there. So she pushed to get a combustion engine. We went from a Ford Mach-E to a Ford Escape that's only combustion only. And I went from a vehicle that was a good bit paid down on to a brand new loan. But on the other side of the coin, last month, one of my vehicles was completely paid off. And another month, I'm going to have the second one completely paid off. I've moved all that money towards that new car loan so that I'm paying more on it per month. So its principal goes down faster. Something you all might want to consider doing.
It's called a snowball.
Is that what it's called?
Yep. It's called a snowball. You snowball your debt. Pay off your highest interest rate one first, and then you take that money, roll it into your next one, pay it off, roll that into your next one, and you snowball your debt. Eventually, when you're done, you got to kick the snowball to the curb and watch it melt because you're done.
Yep.
But yeah.
And just to clarify from Richard up here, we're not saying they can just come take your house. No one's saying that. What I'm saying is they can call your loan. That's not taking your loan. That's not taking your house. They've got to give you a certain period of time to come up with the money for that. And it depends on what's in your loan docs. It's not necessarily every loan. But they do have the ability to do it. I've got a friend that took out I think he took out $1.5 million loan on his house here in California. And the bank called him up and said, if you take another penny out, we're going to call your loan. Well, how could they do that? I don't know, but they felt pretty confident they could do that. My friend's like, okay, I'm not taking any more money out. And, that money's at 2.5%. So he doesn't want to pay it back. He's taken all that cash he took out of that house, all went into gold. And he bought that mostly when gold was under, I would say, about $1,600 or so, $1,500, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
Great timing.
Yeah.
Great timing. But here's the thing. It would have been even better timing had he taken some of that off once gold got up above 4,000, right? Or even right now, and pay that loan down. But he's not doing it because he believes he'll never have to pay it back because of a debt jubilee.
Explain to those of us who don't understand what that is. What is a debt jubilee? Debt jubilee.
Well, the term jubilee, as far as I understand, gets into like Jewish law and festivals and things like that. And it had something to do with every so many years, if it was 80 years or something, someone else can correct me, they would reset their debt. So it was a way for people to never be completely indebted. Maybe it was 50 years.
It's 50 years. Yeah.
So every 50 years, your loans are gone no matter what. They're just forgiven. And the
So-
whole system is built around that.
So from the biblical standpoint, you guys know 70 times 7. It's how many times you forgive. Well, in the book of Leviticus, it actually talks about that 70 times 7 is 490, but the 49 is the servitude year. And if you're there on that 50th year, that time of sanctity, everybody's basically released. All indentured service are released. Everything is done. Forgiveness of debt, everything is finished. And it's just you wipe the slate clean and you start over.
Yeah, and I don't know what the
now-
difference is between every 7 years versus every 50 years, like Barbara Wall's mentioning in the comment there.
Mhm.
But that's the concept. I haven't studied it enough to be able to tell you guys exactly.
Yeah, it's 50 years. You have a 49-year of sabbatical. It's 7 cycles of sabbatical years. Those years are 7 years. So it's the 7 times 7, it's 49 years. And then you end up with the 50th year, which is Jubilee. And that's the releasing of the debt and all of that stuff. And so there's a whole etymology behind it. If you want more on it, I can share it with you.
But that's the concept. So, I guess one thing I'll just throw out there is be careful making financial decisions based on things you hear, right? Prophetic things that go off of different cycles and patterns. I'm not saying you can't follow some of that. I'm just saying be careful with making massive financial decisions around it.
Okay.
But let's go back for a second. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Where do you think things go? Do you think we have a better chance of prices going back up, or do you think we're potentially looking for a lower lows?
Tiger, fire away. I'll take the follow-up.
Okay. I'm not the biggest macro person, but I'm learning. And I've been listening to what you've said, Surfer, Frosty, and most recently Yankee. There's a lot of concern that we're going to drop down to the 48.50 region, which does have me concerned because I'm not in the accumulation phase because of what I'm dealing with. Sometimes I have to let some go, to pay the bills while I'm trying to get myself back into an employment situation. So my concern is in my situation, it might go back down, and to maintain a same amount of payment, I'd have to let go of more ounces. And my approach to it has been to watch as closely as possible. If I have to get out of metals, then get out of silver, because it's a little more volatile, and I might have a chance of getting it back later at a similar price as opposed to gold, which is not as volatile. Not having the omnipotence of God nor the wisdom of Solomon, my gut tells me we're either going to maintain in the channel that Frosty showed us, or we're going to break through and go down to 48.50. I'm more afraid that the 48.50 is going to be the actual occurrence before the market starts to recorrect, and it's going to start climbing again. So that's where I currently sit with the matter. How about yourself, Frosty?
So I'm torn. And again, I don't like doing necessarily projections, but I have my plan, and that's all I'm doing, right? I can look at it every day and I can worry about it, or I can set my alerts and I can watch it, just like what happened when I wanted to buy. I set my alert at a certain number, told chat many weeks beforehand. When silver hits 64, I've got the alert notification set to go off at 65. And then I get another alert that tells me the next dollar down, hey, we've surpassed that number by $1. This is your opportunity to buy. So I bought when it was 64.90 or something like that. Paid it immediately, got the thing taken care of. The transaction went through. The next day it was back up to 69.70, 71. Did I have that plan? Did I know it was going to do that? Hell no. It was a lucky, smart, happenstance kind of thing. I got lucky in that. But you won't be able to get those opportunities if you don't set some alerts, set some boundaries, know at what point you want to buy in, know what point you want to sell. And like Surfer said a little while ago, take some profits from time to time, get rid of some of that debt. If you sit on it, and you lose money, you're not losing money. You're not gaining money until you turn it in.
True.
It could go up to 1,000 and then back down to 10, and you didn't lose $998 or $990 because you didn't cash out. It stayed flat. So if you're not taking profits and rolling it into something, and again, you know, if you're going to pay off debt, pay off your freaking high interest rate debts. Yeah, you got to get rid of that stuff.
That's true. Another thing that I'd like to point out to all of you is if you are going to buy, not only buying the dip, not only dollar cost average, but try to buy smart. It's fun to have all the pours and all that, but you know, I've been in a position where I've had to sell pours because I know if I don't survive, my wife will not be as knowledgeable on how to liquidate. I just did a video just recently because let's face it, American Silver Eagles are still one of the most recognized and sought after silver out there. So with the higher premiums that are out there, how in the world do you go about getting what you need? I just did a video not long ago, released it Friday, where I showed you a way to get Silver Eagles at basically the cost of generic silver. And if you all want to see how that came about, please go look at it. It's called Goodbye BUY or Goodbye BYE. You know.
Well, you were talking about SMART, SMART. We've talked about that too, Surfer. You've talked about that a number of times, right? And planning. Make sure it's specific. Make sure it's measurable. Make sure you can accomplish it. Set a goal you can accomplish. Don't say I want to collect 400 ounces of gold next month. If you make that kind of money and you're worried about finances, then I've got people I need to connect you with because that's you need help. But set realistic goals, and then again, the last one is timely. When do you want to do it by? Set some boundaries, and I've seen so many people talk about what's going on and how it's going to go, but ultimately just stick to your plan. You have to now, Surfer, how often do you evaluate your plans?
Oh, minimum every week, if not daily.
Okay.
Well, that's me.
So I look at mine monthly. Every month I go back through and go, okay, what did I set out to do? Did I accomplish it? Now, this is something really recent with me. And Surfer, you and I have talked about it. God Tiger, you and I have talked about it about 1,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
But the realization that, hey, I am sick and tired of being a slave to something I don't even own. I'm the third party collector. I'm the third party in this transaction.
Mm-hmm.
I live in something that's not mine. I don't like that idea. I know. I got to get out of debt. I've got to be done with this. And it's not a fear thing. It's just, I'm waking up to the realization I've been my own worst enemy for years because I just didn't know this stuff. And what the three of us wanted to do is just come on and say, look, there's a lot of things that you can look at. You can look at financials. You can look at technicals. You can watch people's videos. You can watch the news. You can watch that stuff. But it's important to have the conversation. Ultimately, we're not the finance people that are going to tell you what to do. That we're here to just for commentary. We're here to talk. We're here to have conversation, explain some of the things that we see, right? But we care about our community and we want to make sure that you guys understand the same things. And when we have lessons, all three of us on the panel have gone through some really crappy stuff. And we had to learn some really freaking hard lessons. And we want to share those so that we can make sure that you guys don't have to do some of the same stuff. There are people in this chat I absolutely know have been bent over backwards financially, right? And their metals are what saved them. And so stack smartly, collect smartly, invest smartly, do your research, ask a lot of questions, and make sure you surround yourself with good people.
Yeah, I think that's all very wise. And, we're sharing this because we're going through it at the same time you guys are too. And I see a comment on here. Someone said that they've been selling all along the way. There's people that didn't get into stacking until silver was over $50.
Yeah, I agree.
There's people that didn't get into stacking until silver was over $100.
True.
And, hopefully they didn't go all in and buy it all at 100 and go put $100,000 into it and their life savings and everything. And now they're looking at it going, oh my gosh, I've lost a bunch of money. But the reality is markets are going to go up and down. When I look at everything, I'm still very bullish on gold and silver. I'm not, I don't think the dollar is all of a sudden going to gain all this value back. I think they're going to continue to accelerate the demise of the dollar, basically. I don't think it's going to zero. It'll go really low, but I don't think it's going to go to zero. And, so what would you rather have? Would you rather have a bunch of money sitting in the bank in cash, or would you rather have precious metals? And that's why I say focus on the ounces you've got. When I say daily, that's mostly with like my mining stocks. There's some things I'm looking at daily to potentially change some of my strategy, but I don't take action daily. I'm not like day trading this stuff. On my metals, on my miners, I probably do things on a monthly basis where I buy or sell. But I do sell on eBay, and when I'm selling on eBay, I'll go in and change those prices, every once in a while. I'm probably going to unload a handful of coins that are on there right now and bring the price down just to move them. It's stuff I don't necessarily need, and it has higher premiums on it. Now's a good time to be selling the higher premium stuff. And now the prices come down a bit. But at the end of the day, you've got to do what's right for you that allows you to sleep at night. I'd hate to hear that someone has no cash, yet they've got, a couple 100 ounces of silver sitting somewhere, and now they're having to sell their silver at the bottom that they spent all this time accumulating. A lot of the things we're saying are to kind of help avoid that kind of thing. If you've been stacking for 30 years or more and you bought at really super low prices, it doesn't even matter. It's not probably going to go back down to $5. If it does, then we have much bigger problems. Like, can you find any food to eat? So, I don't see crazy low prices unless everything goes, completely bonkers. And, we're talking about something worse than the Great Depression and the money system, everything breaks. And at that point, it doesn't even matter what anything's worth because you're just trying to feed yourself. I don't see that happening anytime soon. So short of that, we're talking about everything should bounce off of the cup and handles. We should see silver maybe get a little bit below 60 and then bounce back up and start heading for its next leg up. That's what should happen based on charts and history. It's if we go below that and we break down below the cup and handle again, we've got to retest it. And I don't know what the next support is for that, but it could be down in the high 30s. And if we start to lose some of those supports, then we're going to be looking at different things. That doesn't mean that we're out of the bull run, this decade-long bull run that's going to go on. We're still seeing a lot of people moving money out of the stock market, and they're starting to rotate into precious metals. It has not been rotating into crypto. And the crypto guys are expecting that that's going to take off sometime later this year or the beginning of next year because they're looking at their 4-year halving cycles. But they've also existed during the time of major money printing.
Which gives rise to why it'd probably go back up again.
Which is why I'll probably go up again. And most likely we're going to, if you look at the patterns, if you were to look at interest rates, we've never been able to hold interest rates high for very long since we went off the gold standard.
Yeah, and guys, remember when we're talking about this, we're not talking like it's collapsing next week.
No,
there's a lot of time here. We're talking time frames of years, decades. It's not right around the corner, but it is, again, never too late to prepare, never too late to do this stuff. I am not freaked out in the slightest. It's just get a plan, put it together, and execute it.
And
Buying metals is not a plan. It's just buying metals. Have a plan. Sorry, Tiger.
That's okay. You got to keep in mind, freaking out about today, it's going to do nothing except give you a lot of heartache, acid reflux, be stressful on your heart. You know, I've
Take it
mentioned,
from a doctor.
yeah,
Yeah, take it from a doctor.
always been stressful, and medicine's easy. Politics is hard. So basically, my real true stacking wasn't 5 years ago with metals. My real true stacking was 9/11, and I started stacking lead, and that was my very first stack. And then I started stacking food, and I wasn't even conscious of monetary issues until 5 years ago. And that's when I started waking up monetarily. But I had food, and I had the ability to get water. And if someone came to try to hurt me and my family, I had the ability to take care of that. So, and I'm even better with it now. But it was 5 years ago I started stacking metals because my wife and I were horrible savers, and I'm grateful that I got this stuff. I'm able to not worry about paying the bills while in the process I've busted my butt since late November to try to get healthy enough to get any sort of a job. I'm still working on trying to get something to replenish my income. Things that I don't even want to talk about right quite yet. But basically, you prepare for tomorrow today, and don't freak out while you do it. Because if you don't have enough for anything other than buying some constitutional dimes, that's silver and finances you didn't have the day before. And if you just keep on trying to keep on, it's like my wife and I were hardcore not savers. Well, my wife has gone through the house and looked at all the stuff that we don't use, and she's putting it up on sale, and everything she gets, she's keeping it in cash, and she's starting to stack the cash. And it's actually staying instead of her spending. And myself included, I don't touch the cash. Actually, that's not entirely true. I use the cash for a couple video sets, but I give it right back to her. But basically, you prepare today for tomorrow.
Well, you do, and someone else brought up on here too, like they're starting to stack some food.
Yes, good going.
I've added a little bit more to my 25-year food storage, and then I also got some backup solar panel battery generators. And so I ordered that stuff. It comes this Friday, so we've got some of that. I think it's just as important to prepare in those other ways as well. I also bought some gold and silver last week too, so it's not like I'm not buying. But what I have to look at too is liquidity. Right now, when you see things like this, it's a time to look for a little bit of liquidity. It's okay to give up a little bit of profitability for safety. But you have to make decisions quickly when you guys are looking at this stuff. And you've got to kind of look and see where the trends are going. I mean, obviously, when we started hitting 50, and then when we saw that silver went above 50, it came back down, tested, and it started taking off more, I knew that was going to be our last time to buy, anywhere near 50, and it was going to move fast. I didn't expect it to go that fast. But know when the trends are going. That's going to be important to kind of give you an indicator of prices are going up or down. And right now, I think it can go either way.
You can.
Yeah, and again, we look at that channel that we talked about earlier with 100 and 200 day moving average. We're talking about the potential of things, right? And again, it's not that, if it hits the ceiling and goes down, it's not plummeting to 50. It just means that it's a pretty strong ceiling. That's all that means. If it punches through, then it was a weak ceiling, and that's probably not actually the ceiling. And so It may go up and it may sit and it may bounce on top of that channel. If you remember that I pulled it up to the 2-year outlook, you could see that the two channels were way below for a long time the moving price of silver. And that divergence made a lot of people confused because it didn't follow the normal steps of silver. So Surfer, you and I talked about this for a while. It was really weird. Silver was like a stock. It was going up when money was going up. It was going down when money was going down. It just was acting really strange for a long period of time. And you can see that in the divergence of the 100 and 200-day moving average, right? But now we cross back over that 100-day moving average, and now we're sitting in that channel. What does that mean? It means we're sitting in a channel. That's all it means. So take the information you hear and listen to how people spin it. Be careful of the spin and just look at it for what it is. It's a technical that helps you know that it could do one of two things or one of three things. That's all.
One of the things I learned too was the quick and the dead in investing. You know, if you find a great piece of real estate and you look at the math and the numbers pan out, and then you look at the math again and you go, I can't believe I'm seeing the numbers I see. You move quickly. You don't hesitate. You buy it, right? It's the same thing with some of these dips. You just know when it's the right time to buy. You know, most of my silver and gold is pretty much bought. Well, almost all of it's bought below the prices where it's at today. And for gold, way a lot below this, and for silver, it's quite a bit below this too. And you know, you just have to look at patterns. I knew a couple weeks before the pandemic was coming that they're going to we're going to have some issues. So I went to Costco and loaded up. You know, right now I feel like it's a good time to probably load up on some other stuff. And I'm watching the precious metals. We'll see what happens. I'm not sitting there trying to unload a bunch of metals or anything, but I am looking to sell an extra Death Star coin I have. So things like that I'm selling, but I'm not selling my Eagles and Buffaloes and all of that. Most of it I bought way below its price today.
Surfer, I think we need to do a test.
Yep.
I think you need to send me that coin and mark it Hazmat and see if we can, or Hazmat, and see if we can beat the 9-month shipping delay that we had.
Oh my goodness. You know, chances are you get it in 5 years and the thing would be worth 10 times what it is today.
We still got to do that story sometime. I need to have you on. We need to find a day, have you on and go through that freaking story, because that thing is freaking hilarious.
I have no idea like how that even got marked, because I bought that off of like pirate shipping, and I wouldn't imagine they even have like a place to mark that.
Oh, can I make an announcement?
Yeah, but
there's a comment.
I'm surprised Surfer didn't go gaga over seeing that.
Yeah, you know who would love that?
You?
If Bifrost saw that, she'd freak out.
She'd have to sign a legal document saying that I'm actually a real uncle.
I think she'd do that for that Beskar bar. So there's a comment regarding insurance, and it's not necessarily targeted towards this, but I've had a couple people recently ask me, and we're talking a wide gamut of people about, well, how do I insure my metals? How do I insure my collectibles? And then they go to call their insurance company and they're like, well, you have to have a rider, you have to have a retainer, or you have to have an umbrella policy. And people are like, oh my God, there's so much money and all this stuff you have to do. And it's absolutely right. It's just like if you're collecting art, if you're collecting anything, you have to catalog it. You have to have the value, the realized value, the replacement cost. There's a lot of work to that. And so what I've done is, if you're interested in insuring, especially collectibles, primary collectibles, I have reached out to the ANA, the American Numismatic Association, and the current president of the ANA has said that he will connect us with the person who coordinates that. They're going to be on the channel as soon as I can coordinate it. And we're going to be talking about their program, the pros and cons, what's good, what's bad about it. And again, it's not that it's being recommended. I love the ANA as an agency, but there are some times where people just don't want to put their stuff in other people's hands. And I fully understand that. So we're going to bring people to talk about the pros and the cons of this, because it's great to have the hedge. It's great to protect your investments, but you got to protect your investments. And so you need to make sure that there are physical protections that were put into place. I know Surfer was alluding to that a little while ago. There are physical storage considerations that you have to take into place. And then there are other precautions, financial precautions that you have to take into place into consideration. So there's a whole lot to this. So again, ask questions. I'm working on some other things to help with financial. I'll talk to you guys about this as I get more information. But yeah, there's a whole lot to this, but you can take it a piece at a time. Just be thinking about it. That's the number one thing. Just think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you guys want to talk about? Chit chat? I mean, we're at the hour-and-a-half mark almost.
I guess I would just say, end on a happy note here. I can't think of anything better to put my money into than gold and silver right now. I don't have another alternative. You know, I turned down a real estate project in Jackson Hole for a luxury hotel that they're putting in. And the reason I did that is because it only paid out about a 2.5% interest rate for the next year or two. And then after that, it goes up to paying out about 8%. And then it should, you know, double my money. And it's a 10-year deal, and there's a lot of risk in that too. So I look at other things out there. I can't find anything else that really produces a ton of cash flow at scale. You know, might be able to find a little something here and there. But if you're looking to put a bunch of money anywhere, I still think this is the best place to go. The question is just, at what price do you buy? And when do you pull the trigger? But I would tell you guys just to keep your eye on things over the next couple of weeks. I think you're going to have a pretty good indicator by, I'd say by the end of April, maybe a lot sooner than that, on whether we're going up a lot higher or we're starting to go back down. You know, watch $57 silver. If we go below that, then watch 50. If we go below 50, then that's a pretty good indicator that it's going to be going lower than that. And know that that's spot price. Eagles may go up to a $25 premium to buy silver Eagles. So, you know, you got to look at it too. Like, it's not necessarily, you know, we could have a big decoupling between spot price and physical metals price.
There's a lot of opportunity.
True.
I'm going to give my best piece of advice to leave, or to end the stream on my end. And I say this all the time. It's the best piece of advice I've ever received in my life. And it's hard to do, but if you can act and not react, do your research, find people to surround yourself with, ask lots and lots and lots of questions. Don't take anybody's suggestions as biblical truth, right? Cultivate multiple options, test. Same thing you do for your stack. And when you do that, you'll be able to make decisions based off of strategy, plan, and understanding of the situation. FOMO is a real thing, and FOMO is absolutely your enemy to financial wealth. And so we've all made, every one of us have talked about this today. There's a couple of things on each of our screens, including that, what do they call that?
Beskar bar?
No. Hold on. The glamour shot photo that Surfer has up there.
It's GQ. It's GQ, man.
That was before the fungus.
But the whole thing about this is, again, you have a lot of people that, you know, we do the same. We've made the same mistakes. And all we want to do is just make sure that we give you the best possible information. And so, sir, from my end, very short notice. Thank you for coming up, for hanging out with us, talking about these various things. Appreciate you as always. What you got coming up soon? What are you working on?
I'm slowing everything way down because I need to get, I've gone crazy for 3 years to build this channel. And I need to get things more tightened up for my family from a preparedness and prepper standpoint. So that's, I'm going through all of my stuff, making sure we've got enough batteries and, you know, in these kits you do, water expires in 3 to 5 years. So I'm fixing that stuff up. And then I'm working on hopefully getting a website up and maybe some software stuff. And a few other things to help the community. What I think is really important is community more than anything. And, you know, being in the AI space, I can see my job disappearing or being drastically repurposed. And I could even see software companies being irrelevant in a few years. I just saw some new tech stuff where I was like, oh my gosh, that's not good. I mean, it's good for a single person that wants to build a bunch of stuff, not good for a big billion-dollar software company. And so, you know, reality is hitting me in a little bit there. And I'm realizing one of the things AI cannot do, or probably won't be very good at doing, is building a community. You know, I highly doubt a bunch of people are going to want to show up somewhere just to listen to an AI, you know, regurgitate something someone else has said. In a community type form and answer all their questions that way on a live stream or something like that. That'll come. And then, you know, in-person stuff. So I'm looking to kind of take my channel a little bit in that direction and build a really strong community and help everybody with all of this stuff. And then, you know, how do we take it beyond metals is the other thing I'll be looking at. I mean, metals, I don't think will always be the hottest thing out there. I think there'll be a time again where metals just become savings. And, you know, we're looking, what do we do with our metals now? A lot of you guys will be retired and maybe not want to worry about it, but those that are under 50 may be looking for, you know, do I get into real estate? Do I do other stuff with it? So for me, it's really sitting back and building some infrastructure to the overall channel and kind of a program, so to speak.
Cool. You're talking lots of opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Tiger?
Well, I'm trying to build mine. I'm kind of, you know, home a lot. So I'm actually trying to build my channel. By the way, Surfer, I can't tell you congratulations enough for what you've done in a 3-year period of time. A lot of people have been dwarfed by your growth. So, you know, I'm just grateful that you're as successful as you are and that you're still friends with people like little old me. But all joking aside, you know, I plan on trying to build the channel. I'm trying to get good content out there. And I would ask all of you to please show a little bit of love to the work, a little bit of love to the channel. Take a look at the stuff that I've been putting out for all of you. It's good information. You know, how to buy ASEs cheaply. You know, the recent shorts that I've released, the shorts that are coming up, the interviews that I had. I've got an interview coming up on Wednesday with T the Silver Stacker. So I hope you all will be there for that. Thank you all for putting up Surfer's link. And if you'll put one up for Frosty too. You know, please keep in mind, we spend a lot of time creating for all of you and for our community and for our families and all that. So if you would be so kind, go to the channel, see if you can learn something. Leave a like, a comment, you know, subscribe, hit the bell notification for all 3 channels, not just mine, but for this fella down here, this fella over here. You know, we're doing it all on different niches, so to say, but still the same general overall concept is we're all headed in the same direction. maybe there's a little ripple of the water, the river going this way or going that way, but the river's still going in the same general overall direction. So, come and check out the live stream I'm going to have with T the Silver Stacker in 2 days. Go see Frosty stuff. He did an excellent live stream on the big mistakes that stackers and collectors make. I've done a spin-off short about it that's coming out soon. And if you're going to be doing a little bit less surfer, we're still going to have your back. Take care of the family, and then come back stronger than ever. So I think I've said all I had to say. How about you, Frost?
Well, I think Surfer's got his kids in the room, so I think we need to cut him loose. Let him get to family.
Yeah, that's always the truth.
Surfer, thank you, brother. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks, guys. It's the puppy. He sees the shadow.
Oh, got you.
How is the puppy?
Noisy.
He's going to go for a little walk real quick here. Hey, Tiger, I thank you for all that stuff. Puppy's doing good. He's 5 months now, and we're having a lot of fun with him. And I wanted him to get me back out of the house and get walking again and go a couple miles a day kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to that. But, with all this stuff, I saw that Alan Greenspan on here was saying he's thinking about doing his own channel. I encourage people to do this. You can do it at your own pace. You got people like Michael and Nancy stacking that, they just go live and chat with people for a couple hours every night. You've got some other channels where they'll, put just videos out. But to me, it's about community. It's about building this up and helping other people out. And it's not just about putting content out. I really don't need to hear myself talk, and I don't need to see my face on stuff. I mean, I never really wanted to do that in the first place, but I got encouraged to do it, and I've enjoyed it. It's been a blast. It's been fun doing it, but it is a lot of work if you're trying to grow it and you're trying to, monetize it and get it to go really fast and things like that. And it takes money to do it. I mean, I've spent a lot of money getting this thing off the ground, and I've finally made most of that money back. And it's been a good experience. And if you look at some of the big channels in our place, those guys are making crazy money. So there's huge potential here for you guys. And even if you decide not to do a big channel, you can always do a live stream, and you can, put your ideas out there and share it with people. And at the end of the day, there's very few people that stack. I do think over the next 10 years, that percentage is going to grow a lot. And you never know what style people are going to want to, levitate towards and what they're going to like. And you may be that person that has just the style to get that person interested in it.
True. It's true. I'm going to put a little plug in before we close. If anyone's interested in a free ounce of silver, the most recent video, I'm putting this one up for grabs, but you got to watch the video. You got to follow the instructions.
Very cool. Free silver is always cool. All right, guys, y'all have a wonderful night. And there's tons of good content out there. Go find it. Watch something. That's the best way to support the channels. It really is. Watch the content. Share it out.
Exactly. So I'm done. How about you guys?
Yep. We're good.
Yeah, it's been good. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you for coming. So good night, everyone. We're out.
Everybody.